Yeah, that's a great question. And hello, this is We Were Gamers, episode number 389. I'm here with Michael. How you doing, Michael?
You know what? We're trying to keep the boat afloat in more ways than one, JJ.
You are so right. Not only are we in the midst of an atmospheric river, or I don't know, is that the right term this time? I feel like they come up with different names every time.
Well, we are kind of at the confluence of a bunch of different named weather systems. So we have the atmospheric river on top of, is it El Nino conditions this year?
I think this is an El Nino year. Yeah.
So yeah, it is quite literally the perfect storm.
Yeah. So it's pretty wet here with us. So as we're recording, hopefully all you out there have stayed dry and wherever it is that you are from. And Andy has been waylaid by the rain, it seems. So he may not be joining us today, which is, we wish him the best, of course.
Hopefully. We will soldier on while he bails.
Yes, exactly.
Not bails on us, but bails his boat.
Right, exactly. And not to imply that anything is sinking, just more that it's very wet. How you doing, Michael? You have a good week? It was an interesting week for me, I think.
Yeah, you know what? It was very busy this last week. I had some customers in town at work, so you know how the schmoozing game goes. Big meetings, got to do a little wine and dine. So it's always chaotic because we are as the supplier, we are always on the hook to deliver on our presentations. So.
I enjoy that I mostly get to fly under the level of the customer meetings and stuff. But every now and then I do get called into one of those, and then you have to watch what you say and try to toe the company line, regardless of if you disagree with the decisions management is making.
Yep. So it goes.
So it does go. But no one's here to listen to us talk about our lives. Although actually probably there are some people here that are interested in that.
Not that facet of our lives.
Yeah, not that facet anyway. But you have managed to not drown in the various flooding and rain incidents that have been hitting the area recently.
Yeah. Fortunately for me, I don't have far to go on my commute, and I can avoid the freeways. So it's pretty low key even in the worst of weather.
Yeah, there's
and I think a lot of people just stayed home.
Yeah, there's one road that I take to work that sometimes partially floods, and it's just don't stay in the lane by the curb, go one over, and then you're fine usually.
Yeah.
So, that was not too bad. I am down here in San Diego, and people may have seen some pretty crazy photos from the past week or so of there's crazy flooding that happened in San Diego. Didn't happen to me. Not anywhere near where I am.
That's good to hear.
Not a problem for us. So we have stayed, it's wet, but not so wet that we have been unable to, extricate ourselves or do anything. It's just been, a lot of rain, really. Just normal amounts of a lot of rain, not abnormal amounts of a lot. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
setting the stage.
Yeah, let people know how it is. Speaking of stuff that has happened this week, Michael, you got up to some stuff that how did you even hear about this, man? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so there was a bit of controversy. This was Thursday night, I guess, of last week. We weren't doing much. We were sitting on the couch, just kind of idly watching some TV, and I was browsing through the COTC subreddit, and I saw someone had just posted, I guess, a half an hour or so before that, hey, there's this deal on Tapjoy where if you satisfy the conditions, you can make a lot of rubies for COTC really fast. So we've talked about it before, but just as a reminder for people out there who have put it out of mind, like everyone should, Tapjoy is a not so feel good third party that several game makers use to provide offers for players of their games, generally engaging with outside content, whether it's websites or other games, in return for some of the limited currency in whatever game they're playing. And there are, I don't know if we need to go into it, but there are lots of negative opinions of Tapjoy out there.
It's like an engagement farming system for, hey, you play this game, specifically like mobile games. I want to be clear. Like, they're not like, hey, play Call of Duty and get like, points towards playing Fortnite or something. These are like mobile phone games typically. And it's like, hey, you play this. Would you play like Raid Shadow Legends? And you want to earn like $1 for playing way more Raid Shadow Legends than you probably think is worth your time? You get $1.
Yeah. Yep, you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were rolled in as part of COTC a year ago.
It feels like longer than that, maybe. But yeah,
maybe even longer ago than that.
But typically these are like, hey, download this game, play it for a while, get like, 10 cents. And then like, if you pay $20 in this other game, we'll give you $3 in this game, kind of things. Ooh. Where it's like, here's a little bonus on top of that money you were going to spend, kind of thing, right?
Right. So, yeah, I saw someone make a post, and the gist of the post was, hey, they're running a deal right now with Evany, which is probably the most heavily advertised game that we see in playing COTC, at least in the North American market.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's also like somewhat of an infamous game. Like, I feel like it's one of those games that has been around for forever. Every advertisement for it is misleading as to what the game actually is.
Yes, it absolutely is.
And there's like every instance of those, like, I feel like it's a trope at this point of like, here's what the mobile game advertisement looks like, and then here's what playing the game is like. Things. Basically, all of them can be Evany.
Yeah, and it's funny too because they've leaned into it, and now half of their advertisements are, don't you hate those games that advertise one thing and then when you log in there's something completely different? Our game isn't that, even though it's the poster child for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess jumping to the end here, are they lying?
Yes and no.
Okay, so
the level,
yeah, we'll back up.
yeah, we'll get to it because I'll go into Evany and my thoughts on that in a minute. But the ad for COTC, as it was pitched in the subreddit post, was, hey, if you complete the tutorial for Evany, they will just give you 3,000 rubies.
Which, to be clear, is a lot.
It is a lot.
So I don't remember what the conversion rate. I want. Is that like, what is it? Is it 100 rubies for $10?
Yeah, I think that's the flat going rate when they're not offering a deal.
So the barest rate of no, don't discounts or anything, which they are also frequently running discounts, but if there's no discount, that's like $300 worth of rubies effectively.
Right. So a pretty good deal for what eventually wound up being 5 to 10 minutes of your time.
Yeah, I think most people would say 5 minutes is worth $300 of their time.
Yes. So I had ignored Tapjoy pretty much from the beginning.
Yes.
Even though when it first launched, they did have some pretty crazy deals. I think that most people's opinion of Tapjoy was that it's just not worth it because it's too hit or miss on whether they honor deals, and their customer service is terrible.
And the stuff that I've always heard is that, like, yes, you can, if you were playing these other games already, or were going to be playing these, like, or want to play these other games, maybe it's a way to, like, get a little money for doing two things at once, right? But
Right.
Actually engaging with it for the purpose of making the money in the other game is, like, never worth it, right? That's the impression that I've
I think that's the good summation of it.
So this deal was crazy. It was like, do barely anything, get a ton of currency.
Pretty much. So I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do this, it's a one-time thing too. That's the thing, is a lot of them are tied to your install, and you have to go through a particular sequence to set the game up and log into it, so that Tapjoy acknowledges that you've installed the game, and it's attributed back to Tapjoy so that they can give you your rewards.
Which, to be clear, Tapjoy is making money on this. Like,
oh yeah, they make money on clicks.
Yeah.
So they want you to be constantly engaging with their platform.
Okay.
So I log in, I install Ebony, and I'm going through it. And first thought on Ebony is that it's totally unclear what part the tutorial actually is. It does a good job of sort of walking you through the initial, like, here's how to set up your city. And
which, by the way, none of the ads have ever shown a city.
No. So the base of the game is a city building sim with some PvP fighting.
Yeah, so fight your city against other people's cities, and
exactly. Yeah. So that's the base of the game, and they do a good job of walking you through the basics of build your keep, build your walls, build yourself some, initial farming and a sawmill so you can get wheat and wood to expand your civilization. But it's not really clear exactly when the tutorial ends, because they keep walking you through that stuff through the first couple of chapters as well. So by the time I was just sitting and playing through it, being like, surely it's going to tell me here's where the game actually starts. And so I sat and played for maybe an hour. I had the time. We weren't doing anything. It was a quiet night. And before I knew it, I finally went back to Tapjoy, and I had completed the first 3 offer tiers, which were complete the tutorial and then take your main building up to level 10.
Okay. So that's not a ton of work necessarily. I mean, an hour.
No, it was an hour's worth of work. It wasn't bad at all. And so that was the picture that I sent to you and Andy, were those first 3 offers coming back. And those offers were: 1, complete the tutorial. That was 3,000 rubies. 2, reach keep level 5, which was another 1,500. And then 3, reach keep level 10, which was another 23, almost 2,400.
Wild.
So now I've put in an hour worth of work, and I have just a tick over 7,000 free rubies come back for it.
Again, something like the equivalent of $700, or if you use discounted prices, maybe like $350 or something. But still a wild amount of money. At best,
$350 worth of rubies.
Yeah, more likely to be closer to the 700 end. Wild. So, like, clearly someone at Tapjoy messed up here, right? Is that what the consensus is?
I think that's what the consensus is, because by the next morning, there were a couple of posts that had gone up about it and a bunch of comments on both posts. By the next morning, the deals had been nerfed. So they got knocked down, and I think I saw a couple of people posting that the deal for completing the tutorial had been knocked from 3,080 rubies to 4.
Probably the correct number.
I'm sure it was. So needless to say, there were a lot of people who were unhappy to have missed out on this, because in most of the areas where COTC is played, this was overnight, right? People were asleep, and by the time they woke up, it was even the chance to get it was gone. And then on top of that, it got worse because A, the offer was US only, and B, it was also only available to Android. So iOS users, even if they saw that someone else had the deal, couldn't access it themselves.
And, I'm sure there's like a billion reasons why stuff like that is happening. But COTC is a global game, right? It's played by people all over the world. There's a specific server for Southeast Asia, to be, clear. And Japan has its own version for in Japanese locally. But then basically the rest of the world gets this version, right? So a US only offer negates everyone in South America, Europe, the rest of Asia that isn't Southeast Asia, which is typically like Australia, the Philippines and those sorts of regions. And like, that's a lot of people who are like, what the hey? And to be fair, look, who knows marketing reasons why stuff like this happens or whatever, but like, you can't really be mad at the company who made the game. Like, they didn't do this. This is this other platform that they've allowed to work inside their game, right?
Right. And I saw some people make the argument that, well, Square Enix employed Tapjoy and they should keep a better eye. And it's like, look, I understand that as an argument, but if they had the resources and the manpower to oversee like the minutia of every little offer, they wouldn't need Tapjoy. They would do it themselves.
Totally. 100% correct. And, depending on how these things work out, like, I don't know exactly the like conversion rates or whatever is going on here, but like, it's possible that really what happened here is Tapjoy just lost a bunch of money on this offer, right? Like,
I'm thinking so.
If they're paying some hyper discounted rate to get this currency to give to people, right, and like, making money off the trade in the clicks or whatever, like, that stuff is paying 3,000 rubies or whatever, or 3,000, $300 worth of currency for effectively no time. All it does is lose Tapjoy money. So like, if anything, the company, Tapjoy should be mad at themselves for not policing their offers better before sticking them live, right?
Yeah, I saw one comment that someone has been in an office for the last 4 hours getting chewed out by their boss and all the bosses above them.
Totally. Or, you assume that they have a real office, which I think is a bold assumption to make, and that it's not just like, a bunch of people meeting virtually.
Oh yeah, that too.
But yeah, someone got in trouble for sure. It's just a very funny occurrence, and then people getting mad about it for like reasons I can't understand.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So Tapjoy has been off. The US and Android divides are not new. They've been inherent in Tapjoy since it was implemented as a platform, and the crazy deals were there from the beginning, and they've actually dwindled a lot since it first got introduced. So I feel like if people were going to get mad at the disparity of Tapjoy, they had plenty of time to do it. And a lot of people are just kind of upset that, people made a big deal of it because it was big numbers and FOMO.
Yeah. People are mad that they didn't get to cash in on the easy money, right? And then so here's the other question though. I mean, Michael, do you think this is going to ruin your appreciation of the game? Because now you have all the money and you'd be like balling out of control with infinite rubies, basically.
To that, I did discover that while they had nerfed the ad as it was offered, if you had claimed it, they're still honoring the old levels.
I'm sure there's something in the TOS about like they can't if they offer to you, they can't just
if you've already accepted. So I'm currently up 19,500 rubies.
Just from this one ad?
Just from this one promo, and I have one more level that I'm really close to hitting, and I think I'll call it there.
Do the numbers keep going up, or do they all stay in this like several thousand level as you keep playing more Ebony?
So let's see. There was the biggest one I think was 6,500. But some of the others that I've completed were 961, 659, and then the next one that I'll hit will probably be 1820.
Jeez.
So a lot of them, there are two of them that are tied to spending money, but even if you do the conversion, the money that you would spend is drastically less than what you would spend for the same amount of rubies directly from COTC.
Sure, but like, are you going to spend money on Ebony though?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was gonna say I had to talk you out of this if you were going that far.
Right. That's the line, right? Is like, I'll spend a little money on the game itself, but I don't need to spend money in another game.
Yeah, that's it. There must be a line. It must be drawn here.
This far and no further.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so they put a cap on it. You have like 3 weeks to get as far as you can, but it also gets to the point where the time investment that it takes to reach some of these higher levels just becomes way more than you want to put in.
Yeah, it's like, get to level 100 or whatever, but the levels start getting much harder to get as you go up, right?
Yeah, which kind of brings me back around to Evany itself, in that it's definitely a game that is suffering from bloat. If you are a new player, there are parts of it that feel like very kludged together. But taking advantage of an offer like this at whatever incentive level you take advantage of is actually maybe easier than the devs of the game intended, because the Ebony developers, like the developers of any other game, their intent is to get you on the treadmill and keep you there in the long term, right? So that over the course of time, you will spend money here and there to keep the game going. But if you are a new player, to kind of catch you up to speed, they throw a whole lot of resources at you so that you can build things up very quickly. And if you, as the player, don't intend to stick around for more than a couple of days, well, now you can kind of go nuts burning through all these resources that they are throwing at you and very quickly achieve some of the levels that are in the ad.
I see.
Right? It totally changes your strategy, and you can take advantage of what they're giving you, where a long-term player might have to think about, okay, I need to hoard some of this for when things really start to get deeper in the game.
Sure. Yeah. A person who wanted to play for the long run, like you said, is going to need to hold on to that currency for when they get to the hard stuff later, but you can just use it to bypass early time gates or whatever.
Exactly. And so I just have been burning it as soon as I've been making it.
Gotcha. But you're gonna get off though, right? I want to
so
I'm gonna save you here. I don't want to fall into the pool.
Yeah. No, don't worry about that. So the next reward level is upgrade your keep to level 21. My keep is at level 20.
Okay.
I think I have one additional thing to construct before I can do that final build on the keep itself, and then that'll be it.
All right. Well, that was an interesting story. I don't know how else to frame it. So, okay, the other thing. Talking about Evany, the game itself. Is any of that stuff from the ads in there? Are they just lying?
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you brought that back up. So a lot of the ads you see are the puzzle game, where you're a guy standing outside a building and there are a bunch of different pins that you can pull out to make different things happen, right? So lava falls, or you drop a boulder, or you dump a bunch of water out, and you're trying to get to the treasure chest past the traps and the enemies that are also on the screen. And that does exist in the game.
Okay.
So there is a portal that takes you to an island that's broken up into a bunch of different sections, and you unlock sections as you upgrade your main keep, and each section has some number of puzzles in it that you can work your way through sequentially, right? Okay. So you complete the first puzzle and the second one unlocks, and you work your way through.
I gotcha. But it does require you interface with it's not like they staple the second game on the side here.
No, it's not. So it does tie back in, right? The rewards for finishing the puzzle levels are resources for building your city.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it does exist, but it is a minor part of the overall game.
Okay. And so then the other thing I saw people saying was you need to join guilds or something to get people to power level you in order to do some of this. Did you do any of that, or did you do this all yourself?
I joined an alliance. I don't know that it has done a lot for me in the short term, other than it just opens up some different achievement levels that you have access to get more resources to speed up your building.
Okay, so maybe it helped you in a minor way, but not really anything serious.
Yeah, it did. Sped up some of the building here and there.
Okay, I'm just curious. This is like, I'm never going to do this, but it is cool to hear that someone actually did something worthwhile with one of these kinds of things.
Yeah, it's been a very kind of bizarre experience.
Definitely sounds like it.
You can see a heavy sort of Civ influence to it.
Okay, I mean, I like Civ. I'm a Civ enjoyer.
But you can also tell where they've just sort of layered on one layer after another to the point where you're just sort of staring at it and it's an overwhelming sense of what do I do?
Yeah. I imagine getting into any of these kinds of games at this point, if you're not there from the launch, is pretty tough. Like, I bet COTC feels like that for people who are trying to start now, right? It's like, what is a soul weapon? What is shards? What am I getting with these nuts? Like, what is... yeah, I could see it, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure if I went looking for them, like I know that it has its own subreddit, and I'm sure I could go look up beginner's guides for the best culture to choose starting out, and how to build your city, and
how to power level. I'm sure
people have done all of the math on like, this is the skill tree path you need to follow for the best return, and yada yada yada. But I don't need to know any of that.
Because you're going to be done with it here in a couple days anywho, so whatever.
Pretty much.
Yeah, very cool, man. Hey, stealing from big companies isn't wrong. That's what I'm saying, It's not even stealing. They gave it to you, right? They said, hey, take this thing. It's like, it's not my fault you made a stupid offer.
Hey, man, they made a mistake, and I'm happy to reap the benefits of it.
Speaking of something finally correcting a mistake, something finally happened last week that I kind of had given up hope they were ever going to do.
Okay.
Did you know that the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters on PC have been very different from the versions that released on the consoles for like a long time?
I had heard something about this.
And finally, last week, they released a patch that brought all the console features over and brought them up to parity. Like, people had been working on mods for these games for like a close to a year or something at this point because of how bad the PC versions were. And like half the problems were fixed, probably more than half the problems were fixed on the console versions. Like, remember when, I know you remember when they came out, we talked about the fonts and like how the font looked so terrible.
That was one of the biggest complaints that I think I saw people.
Console versions had good fonts.
Yes, they did.
PC version never got it. And they just didn't do it for like a year or something. And just finally this past week, they updated all those Pixel games with all the features from the console versions.
It's about time.
What are they doing? Look, I get if you don't, you want to keep them separate for some kind of reason. It's the same game though, man. Like it's like if you want to sell different versions, PlayStation exclusive versions or Xbox exclusive versions or whatever, I get it. But that's not what this is. This is literally the same game. Like, why would you do this? Like, if you're developing for multiple platforms, wouldn't you just push the change to all of them at the same time if you could?
I think so.
Why wouldn't you do this? I don't know. But from all the stuff I've read, of course, all the mods that had existed before are immediately broken. But all the people I saw talking about it were like, okay, these games actually seem worth playing now. Like, the font changes are a really big deal for games that are very text-based. And a lot of the other things they added, like a lot of the boosters and stuff that you could do, like turning battles off, some stuff like that was already there, but there were even more options for that, like, multiple XP multipliers and things of that nature, that they brought over. Just like, earn triple the money, earn triple the experience, whatever, that kind of stuff. And like they finally brought all that stuff over to the PC, which is like great to see them actually do that finally.
Yes, thank goodness. It was so weird because they had implemented all of that stuff into the port when they did Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah.
All those speed ups and toggle on, toggle off for quality of life. And so I think it was just so bizarre when these games launched and didn't have any of that.
And look, I get it. Each of these games are different games. They're, maybe you have to code each of those things slightly differently, but the like really basic stuff, it's like, I understand it's not basic to just change the font in like an NES game. You can't just do that.
Sure.
But you have already done the work to make it render differently on a PC. Could you like get in there and just like make it look good instead of looking like crap? You got it to display bad letters. Can you just get it to display less bad ones? Like, it doesn't have to, I don't need the text from the NES to show up, like the block font from that, but if you made it display bad letters, just make it display less bad ones, like, I don't know. That feels like it should be easy. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. I understand how software is made. It's a giant mess. I get it. But like, sure, that feels like that the bar was so low there.
Yeah.
Anyway, happy to see that stuff, especially because some of these games are like legitimate classics, like 4, 5, 6, all of those are games that people like love and adore, and you're able to play them like in good versions,
Yeah. So, good on Square for getting there eventually.
Yeah. I did play some games this week, Michael. I know, again, 2 weeks in a row of actually playing games. I know people are probably falling out of their chairs.
Falling off their chairs, yes. So what did you get up to?
I actually got up to this a while ago, but I played Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, which is the latest in the long-running Like a Dragon series, which is the renamed version of the Yakuza series.
Okay.
And this is fortuitous because that game is the like sort of, as Gaiden implies, for those of us who grew up in the 90s, we remember Gaiden is a side story, right? That's the Japanese word for that.
Yes.
Very popular back in the day to talk about like, oh, this was like, some Japanese game was like something Gaiden, and it was like, a sequel that never came out in the US. I feel like that was a thing that always happened. The Gaidens never came over here.
Ninja Gaiden is the one everyone knows, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, right. Ninja Gaiden, like the Gaiden there means it's like a story. So it's like Ninja Story. That's the name of that game. Right. And it kind of implies that it's like a tale aside from the main story, right?
Right.
So, the famous example being Ninja Gaiden, but like, so this is a Like a Dragon Gaiden, which again, all the Yakuza games going forward are going to be called Like a Dragon, because apparently that's what they were always called in Japan, and now they just kind of have like unified it now. So I don't know. Complicated. It messes with my library because all the games don't sort in the right next to each other anymore. No. I had to like create a category and stick them all in there to get it like in the right places.
Make a shelf.
Yeah, basically it got annoying. But yeah, so Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, tells the story of our boy Kazuma Kiryu. Everyone loves this man, the protagonist of all these games, and sort of how he got to the point of where he is when you meet him in the previous game, Yakuza 7, and where you will meet him when Yakuza 8 comes out. It's actually already out by the time this is out, but it came out late in January. So basically, like, you kind of like, some stuff goes down at the end of 7, right? big stuff happens at the end of 7, and then he pops back up in 8 and is doing some completely other stuff. And it's like, you weren't following him anymore because you're with this new character, right? Ichiban is the main character now in 7 and 8. And so you don't really know what Kiryu was up to and like how this changed, right? So this is kind of a smaller version of one of these games. It sort of tells the story of how he got there. And of course, it's the standard Yakuza stuff. You run around the town, you get into fights with people, you rip off your shirt and have like fist fights, play golf. You can there are arena battles. All the like, there's karaoke. Gotta have karaoke. It's a Yakuza game.
Of course.
Yeah. So, it was one of these. Super fun. I had a really great time with it. It was fun to go back to the like Kiryu style brawler gameplay.
Okay, yeah.
I think we talked about this even on the podcast, right? Like Dragon 7 was famously a turn-based RPG.
Yes. Yeah, we did talk about that.
And 8 is as well. So, I don't know, JRPG is the right word, but yeah, it is a turn-based RPG, right? And this game is not. This game is the action style combat with, like blocking and punching while the enemies are, like a brawler action kind of game. So
yeah, I hear you.
It was fun to go back and do some of that for a while before I dive into the turn-based combat of Yakuza 8, which I'm sure I'm going to end up playing. Because
very nice.
Played all these other ones, so
yeah, you gotta stay on it.
It was cool. I liked where the story ended up. I did get to the end. Didn't quite do the platinum because again, there's always like some really annoying mini game stuff that you have to do. I don't know, annoying, not true. The mini games are fun. I did all the mini games to some degree, but like, do I want to play Virtua Fighter in the arcade for 4 hours? No, not really.
Probably not.
So, but yeah, that was a good time. Finally, getting back onto the Like a Dragon stuff. Well, I don't really have a transition there, so
hard pivot.
Yeah, we're just gonna hard pivot. Where do we think Square Enix is going with this like recent slate of stuff they've been up to? Oh, they've recently shown off that new Mana game, right?
Yes, very excited for Visions of Mana. Talking about that coming to Xbox and Game Pass.
Are they like turning a leaf here, bringing the console stuff to these pixel remasters? Are they like finally starting to do stuff that people actually want again?
I'd like to think so. The last couple of things that they've put out have been, what did they just do? They just did Star Ocean, the second story.
Yeah, they came out a bit ago.
Yeah, that was a couple of months ago. Was hugely popular as an original game, and so I think there was a lot of hype surrounding the fact that they were remastering that. And now they're going back to the well on a beloved property with the Mana series and coming out with Visions of Mana.
They did also close the Tokyo RPG studio. The ones that made I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere and another game whose name I forgot.
There was a third one in there. Those, unfortunately, I feel like those all got mixed reviews.
The stuff I always heard about I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere is that both of them were like pretty good, but not great. And I don't think I heard anything about the third game. I can't even remember what it was. I was pretty interested in both of those first two games, and then kind of just fell flat. Sort of the continued carnage of the video game industry, laying people off and shutting everything down.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to make it with let's say an interesting property, right?
I think it's really tough just to come up with new stuff, right? Like I totally get the desire to create new franchises, to create new things. Any company would be foolish not to be investing in that to some level, right? Who knows when something is going to become the next Final Fantasy or the next, maybe it's not possible to become the next Final Fantasy anymore, but who knows when it's going to become, the next Gears of War or something like that, right? Like something that, sort of a generation spanning title. But you know, it's tough out there for people these days, and if your stuff doesn't hit, I think the runway is kind of short for people, unfortunately.
Yeah, you gotta feel for them.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully, I don't know. I would love if Square Enix could get their stuff together and try. What was it? Was it the Square Enix CEO who was like, "Oh yeah, we definitely want NFTs." It's like,
yeah, and I think we all kind of cringed at that announcement. Like, oh no, please don't go that route. And then you notice that we haven't heard another word about it.
Yeah, hard to know what those business types think up in their rarefied air, but get a clue, dudes. Yeah. Come on, what are you people doing?
Surely it's not me. I just see the Principal Skinner. No, it's the children who are wrong.
Yes, certainly, right? Yeah. So,
I think to answer your question, I hope so. I hope that they are getting a better sense of what the mood is among their fan base and trying a little harder to serve up things that they know that will be very popular among their players, but also, kind of move some of these titles forward.
Yeah.
Because I think there's room for them to do both at the same time.
Totally. I think they have done pretty well with some of their new stuff, like the 2D HD stuff in Octopath. Not just because we play the mobile game, but the actual console versions like Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. I think 2 has been like, I don't know about in terms of sales, but at least it was very critically liked from the critics I were reading. They were like way into it.
Yeah, it was super popular from, especially, among the fans of the first game, but I think well received among the gaming community in general.
Yeah, I saw enough people being like, okay, like, yeah, Octopath Traveler 1 is good, but like, what if you just skip straight to 2 because 2 is so much better,
Yeah, it fixed a lot of the systems that people thought, well, I'll work with this, but
yeah. So, I think that's a sign that they can do it, right? They can still do new stuff, even paying homage to some of that old stuff. And like you said, like with Star Ocean, right? This beloved old game that they remade in like a really super cool way.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully we see more of that coming from them in the future. I don't know what they have other than Mana. I don't know what they have coming up.
That's a good question.
Not a release schedule guy, so.
Well, so I think the next thing is the next chapter of the FF7 remake.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's the next big thing that they have on the docket.
Okay. I think that comes out pretty soon, actually.
Yes, and they have it's just about to happen, I think it's just about to happen. They're having a separate presentation specifically for that. Because, PlayStation just did a state of play where they showed a bunch of upcoming stuff. And the Final Fantasy, I guess they decided is exciting enough that it merits its own separate event.
Okay. I mean, look, the Final Fantasy VII remake. The name of the game is Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's hard to talk about what it is when that's what it's about. But yeah, that game was not only well liked, but I believe sold very well also. So yeah, I'll be curious to see what the second step of that game is based on where they leave off, which I'm shaking my head, but whoa. Did you play that one, Michael?
I have not fired it up yet. I have it. It is in my library. It's high on my list.
Did you play the first one? The original?
The original Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay, you need to play that game.
Even back in the day.
Here's what you can do. Stop playing Ebony and go play this. Trust me, it's worth it. You can use a controller, it's fine. You don't need to do anything fancy. Just get in there. You will like it. Even if you don't go all the way, completing it or finishing all the side quests or whatever, of which there are some that probably don't need to be done. But
Sure.
That game is great. You will have, especially knowing that you know the story and like kind of what happens, you'll have a really good time with that game.
I have heard. I have some very good friends who I have discussed Final Fantasy with throughout the years, and in fact, one friend in particular who we've had conversations going back over a decade about how Final Fantasy VII needs a remake. So when this game came out, there were some very excited conversations for it to land. So I'm behind in getting to it, but it is definitely still high on my list.
Yeah, you will enjoy it. Did you get the one with the DLC included, or is it predate that time?
Okay. Yes, so it has the Yuffie DLC.
Interesting stuff. It doesn't really. It's like kind of a side thing, but it is interesting to see what they did with Yuffie in this game. Just to one of those, you kind of should complete the game before you play that part, kind of thing. But like, it is interesting to see what they did with Yuffie. So, especially knowing that she was like a side character that you could just completely miss in the original game, right?
Right.
So, all right. Well, I think we'll call that a show here.
That's a good place to wrap it up for this week.
Yeah, Michael. Now I know we normally tell people to like check us out on our social media and YouTube and all that stuff, but there's a very important way that they can get in contact with us to give us their theories on what Square Enix is going to actually do to actually listen to their fan community, and how can they do that?
They should email us at podcast@weweregamers.com. Let us know what you want to see coming out of Square Enix in the next couple of years. If you think they should launch Tapjoy into the sun. Which seems to be a popular opinion these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love to hear from everybody. We'll collect the emails. It sounded from Andy last time like we had a growing stack of them, and we might be able to do an email episode soon.
Yeah, I think we're not quite critical mass, but I think we're getting there. So folks keep sending those in, and we'll definitely answer some of those questions coming up here. And yeah, we are on social media, so please hit us up on there. And please follow our YouTube. That really does help us out. youtube.com/@weweregamers. Well, Michael, stay dry out there. I hear the rain increasing in intensity as I'm talking with you. So
you too.
It's probably best if we call it here.